Yeah, I thought it's a massive contrast from the Kolkata pitch, for one thing. We were expecting a better wicket. I thought it was pretty lifeless, but I've just heard Tristan Stubbs say that it was quite hard to score as well. I think it was just good old-fashioned attritional test cricket, and I thought both sides accounted for themselves very well. I thought we stuck at it brilliantly. When the game was slipping away a couple of times, we managed to get a foothold back into the game. Bumrah's wicket before the first break and Kuldeep straight after, and then that last wicket at the end of the day probably makes it more or less an even day. Real hard toil and first innings runs are going to be very important. And then hopefully a little bit later in the test it becomes a bit tougher to bat on. Yeah, he did. 3 wickets on that surface on day one, like you say. We know Kuldeep's strike rate is phenomenal as it is. He's a wicket taker, and that's why we're picking. Like I said, I thought everyone bowled well, but maybe the fact that he sort of gets overspin and with the red soil and a little bit more pace in the wicket, maybe he was slightly more effective in the conditions today. And like I said, I think later on the finger spinners are going to come into it. But certainly in terms of strategy and how we wanted to set out the first day, it's a real bonus for him to pick up 3 wickets and get us a foothold in the game. I thought the one thing we did really well is make sure that none of them got a big score, and it's 1 point of difference we can have in the second innings. I guess on the flip side of that, they all got in, so they didn't really lose wickets in clumps. Is it a coincidence? I think we bowled well. I'm not just saying that. I think we kept pressure on for long periods of time, and like I alluded to earlier, when scoring's not that easy, when you can only really score off bad balls, it sort of adds pressure onto the batting unit, and maybe that's the reason for guys getting in and no one getting a big score yet. But certainly I wouldn't blame the wicket. If you can soak up the pressure and be prepared not to score or to score very slowly, then we're going to need someone to go and get a big score, because like I said, first innings runs are going to be crucial. It's a really tough one, and my personal point of view is that the wicket very rarely determines who wins the game. If we'd played better in Kolkata, I feel we could have won the test on that surface. So the first thing isn't to look at the wicket, it's to look at the quality of cricket that both teams are playing. But having said that, and you got to introspect and look at recent results, I think these sort of wickets maybe do suit us a little bit better. You've got to be prepared to fight really hard, and this game's going to go deep. And the only thing I would say is maybe the toss makes it even more important, or the toss becomes even more important in these conditions. So, if you are going to be prepared to lose the toss, you have to put on a display like that today and, really fight for every run, make sure you stay in the game. And like I say, at some point the pressure's going to come. It's just going to come later in this game. But that's a very fair question. And yeah, the template for us is probably closer to this than, playing on some of the wickets we have played on. Look, no one's meaning to get out, and I understand the frustration, and some of the reasons would be the perforation of white ball cricket, into the mainstream of cricket. It's the main body of cricket, and maybe that skill of really grinding it out like guys did in the 90s and 2000s, that is sliding away, and it's maybe something we have to accept, or otherwise pick guys who are only suited to play that way. I'm not sure that's the right answer as well for succeeding in Test cricket at the moment. But all we can do as a coaching group is make guys aware of it. We know guys are fit, so concentration is really important. And again, just to be aware of situations in the game, big moments in the game, and ask guys to knuckle down. And like I said, the one thing we do have an opportunity is to make a point of difference of someone getting a really big score. Look, I think in the World Test Championship, you have to get a high percentage of your points at home. It's some of the tours you go on are really tough to pick up more than 50% of the points, and we know it's going to be around about 60% to qualify for that final. So, if you do the maths, your home series are really important. And so in terms of template, in terms of the wickets you want to play on, you're always scared of drawing as well. So you've got to get that balance right of preparing or playing on pitches that you think are going to give you a result, and obviously which gives you the best chance of getting the result. I think we're learning a lot about the players. Maybe the template that worked sort of well 6-7 years ago, and the change in personnel, the new guys are brought in, maybe we do need to find a slightly different template. But I feel like you don't have too much time to play around. Every test is important, every series is super important. So we're trying to accelerate and trying to get the players to buy into whatever surfaces we are presented with at home. I don't think there was any evidence to suggest that it's deteriorating quite yet. I thought it played really nicely. Particularly with the seam bowlers, it didn't look like they could extract much from length or back of a length. So hopefully it stays in this sort of shape for at least the even amount of period for both teams to sort of cash in on the first innings scores. And we just went to have a look at the pitch now. There's some foot marks, some tiny ball marks, but nothing to suggest it's dry or cracking at the top. So fingers crossed that it lasts and plays well for the next few days. I think we're pretty certain on who's going to bat for, and the players have been informed. We keep talking about versatile players and players that can bat in different positions, and we're asking guys to do on the day what's ever best for the team. So there's going to be a reshuffling of the order. And can I ask you to wait till hopefully tomorrow morning to see what it is? I don't want to put a number on the score. I think it's really important that we come out and put our best bowling foot forward tomorrow morning. Every run's going to be important. Just like I said, getting De Zorz's wicket towards the end of the day is massive. It's a big difference coming in tomorrow needing 4 wickets compared to 5. Nitish, I think the way we assessed the wicket, we thought it might do a little bit this morning. And obviously, if you play 2 seamers, you have to go to spin very early, and it's difficult for the captain to juggle just 2 seamers. And then obviously, if you go for an out-and-out seamer, you 1 batter less. So on balance, we thought it was the best strategy to play the bowling all-rounder. Someone who we feel can get big runs as well. And as it turned out, we didn't feel that you needed any more seam than just the 2 today, but we still feel it's the right balance with 4 days to go in the test.